I want to bring in, we've got Devin Nunes. He's the ranking Republican on the House Intelligence Committee, and he joins us now. First, Representative Nunes, let me just start with this vote and more importantly, the idea of a national emergency. What are your thoughts and where do you stand on this?
I actually agree with your panel. I was standing here listening to the panel. I think we need to have everything on the table. We need to deal with DACA. We need to have a work permit system. That's really what we should be doing, but the Democrats in the House haven't wanted to come to the table. So, you know, they promised that they were going to take care of immigration. This is the obvious time to take care of the DACA kids, but they're not willing to even put something on the table. So, you know, what we're left with is barely starting the wall, but a true solution is real border security with a real worker permit system and dealing with the people that are here. That's what the American people should expect from us.
That goes without saying, I think, at this point, and yet that's not what's being delivered from Washington, D.C., and it's been a very long period of time. President Trump now, perhaps, according to sources, ready to use a national emergency. Sarah Sanders saying that they're very prepared for legal challenges. Where do you stand with respect to that? Because I know within the Republican Party, some think that this could be a dangerous path to go down. It can open a Pandora's box.
Well, it is a dangerous path, but the path has already been down by President Obama numerous times. So I really support this idea because I think we have to have legal challenges so that we can show the American people whether the courts are going to only side with Democrats and Democratic presidents or the court's going to be fair. There's definitely in the law that this is an emergency on the border. The president has the powers to do it. Where if you take with President Obama, even though I'm the person who actually wants to deal with the DACA kids, I think they need to be dealt with in a humane way. But President Obama didn't have the legal authority to give these people status, and that's still being fought over in the courts. So I think it's a good idea because we're paying the price for an administration that went really awry over the last 8 years before Donald Trump became president.
Representative Nunes, let me change directions here a little bit because there's a lot of fallout. The 60 Minutes interview coming up with Andrew McCabe, also promoting his new book, The Threat, How the FBI Protects America in the Age of Terror and Trump. And the most explosive thing so far, an admission of sorts of a potential, for lack of a better word, coup against President Trump. I mean, what do you make of that?
Well, I actually had not heard the name of the book until you just said it. It's interesting they talk about in the age of terror. What I think most Republicans agree with that, but the terror came from the FBI and Department of Justice, who used a document, dirt, dug up by the Clinton campaign to start an investigation. And then including, I mean, if you've seen some of the interviews or read the excerpts, he even talked about the steps that he took to ensure that the investigation would continue. We know from, I've looked at all of this over the last 2 years, we know for a fact the FBI knew at the time of the appointment of the special counsel from the lead investigators that there was no there, meaning that they had nothing on Trump, they had no collusion, they never did. Why? Because it was propaganda from the Russians given to the Clinton campaign, picked up by our FBI. It's an embarrassment and it is a terror and they did try to attempt a coup. And it should never have been done, and this needs to be righted. It's a wrong that needs to be righted.
It's shocking. I mean, we have to really sit down and pause for a moment. And I think we get hit with so much news, and it changes every 24 hours that we just let things go. But the idea that the FBI was doing a nose count to see maybe how many members of the cabinet, they needed 8, would be okay with the 25th Amendment to take away the presidency, to overturn essentially the vote of the American people, ostensibly because they thought he would pull the plug on a Russian investigation. It's so far-fetched, and yet this is real life. This was happening. How is this happening in this country right now?
Not only did it really happen, Charles, but they cast a net so wide without any real evidence on anyone. The only evidence they had was this dossier that the Clinton campaign paid for that came from Russians. And the irony in all this, and I know I can't say it enough times, the very thing that they were investigating the Trump campaign for, which was supposedly getting dirt from Russians to use against Hillary Clinton, that's exactly what the Clinton campaign did. And so, you know, I hope that the new AG gets in there and he starts to clean house, and so that we can start to put the Department of Justice and the FBI back together again.
Sir, I want you to take a listen, along with the audience, to what Senator Graham had to say earlier today.
We're definitely going to speak to Andrew McCabe and the whole crowd about what happened during the 2016 election.
A lot of people believe that Andrew McCabe should be facing justice himself. Of course, he was fired the day before his retirement for lack of candor, which is a euphemism for lying. What are your thoughts on bringing Andrew McCabe back to Capitol Hill and digging further into this, and maybe where he should he be facing some legal challenges himself?
Well, all of them that were involved in the development of the FISA, okay, so this was the secret warrant that went after the Trump campaign, everybody who was behind that should be held accountable. You know, whether it was a conspiracy or not, whether it was abuse of power, I don't know, but they should be held accountable. The court, the FISA court, should hold them accountable also. The FISA court should step in. They could all lose their law licenses or be charged with lying to the court or misleading the court. Those are the types of things that need to happen if we're going to keep this process, this FISA process, which is designed to target terrorists, to target bad guys. The American people need to understand that system that's supposed to target really bad terrorists and foreigners was used against a political campaign. That's where this all went wrong, and somebody's got to fix it, because every day that goes by that it's not fixed, there's fewer and fewer Republicans who will support the continuation of these programs, which are extremely important to protecting Americans.
Sir, will you have a statement, a joint statement that's just come in on the possibility of President Trump declaring a national emergency? Is from Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and Speaker Nancy Pelosi. I want to share it with you. It's a joint statement. Quote, declaring a national emergency would be a lawless act, a gross abuse of power of the presidency, and a desperate attempt to distract from the fact that President Trump broke his core promise to have Mexico pay for his wall. It is yet another demonstration of President Trump's naked contempt for the rule of law. This is not an emergency, and the president's fear-mongering does not make it one. He couldn't convince Mexico, the American people, or their elected representatives to pay for his ineffective and expensive wall. So now he's trying an end run around Congress in a desperate attempt to put taxpayers on the hook for it. The Congress will defend our constitutional authorities. Your thoughts?
Well, for those people to talk about lawlessness after President Obama set a record for executive orders and executive actions without any authority is hysterical. So they probably just ought to look in the mirror, because normally whatever they accuse you of doing, they're actually doing themselves. Like I said earlier, I think this is an important step to take, because this needs to get into the courts, because we need to deal with all of the executive actions that have taken place over the last decade or so.
Are you confident that that will happen? I mean, we're looking at an American public who's really skeptical. We've seen hearing after hearing after hearing after hearing, and it just goes on from one administration to another. And it feels like this notion of some form of justice, some form of clarity, some finality to all of it remains very elusive.
It does, and it's like we started out with, Charles. This is really sad that we cannot get bipartisan cooperation in this town to solve the problem with immigration. Remember, Republicans got about 180 votes last year in the House. We need 218. We only got 180. But that was for DACA. It was for building the wall. It was for border security. It was a great piece of legislation. Not one Democrat voted for it. Here they promised all these DACA kids that they're going to take care of the DACA kids. The president reached out to them, gave them an olive branch to have some type of comprehensive immigration reform, and they haven't done it. So, and then they sit there, I mean, first time I heard the statement, you just read it, but sit there and complain about lawlessness, I mean, give me a break.
Right. Representative Nunes, thank you very, very much. Really appreciate
Thanks,
your time. Also, to let the audience know, we reached out and called Adam Schiff, chair of the House Intel, and he was not available at this time.
This is a Fox News alert. Major developments out of Washington. President Trump says he will declare a national emergency in order to build his border wall. You are looking live at the Senate floor, where lawmakers just passed a budget bill to avoid another partial government shutdown. It now heads to the House. The president says he will sign the bill and will then declare the national emergency. The White House describing the plan, saying, quote, President Trump will sign the government funding bill, and as he has stated before, he will also take other executive action, including a national emergency, to ensure we stop the national security and humanitarian crisis at the border. The president is once again delivering on his promise to build the wall, protect the border, and secure our great country. This move obviously comes with a lot of pushback from Democrats and could set up a major legal showdown. Here's Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi.
If President Trump decides to go forward with a disaster declaration, he'll be making a tremendous mistake.
Did I ever say I was filing a legal challenge?
You said Democrats.
I may. That's an option, and we'll review our options. But it's important to note that when the president declares this emergency, first of all, it's not an emergency, what's happening at the border. It's a humanitarian challenge to us. The president making an end run around Congress. Here he said, let us respect what the committee will do, and then walks away from it.
Well, Jesse, I know you pay attention to what I say, right?
What's up?
You know the remember the last day that when the shutdown ended and he said they're going to do this compromise bill? I said at the end of it he's still going to declare a national emergency.
And remember what I said? I also said I don't know if we're ever going to get money for the wall. And if you look at this, there's no money for the wall. This thing is packed with so many poison pills and landmines.
There's a lot.
If you just look at just one right here, it prohibits construction in the Rio Grande Valley on federal land. The entire Rio Grande Valley is like federal land you can't build the wall on. And it says what type of wall you can't build, what you can build. And the worst part, you have to consult with local elected officials in the area before they sign off on a wall. So Beto gets a say on whether the wall gets built. It's total garbage. I don't know how these Republican negotiators got smoked, but they got smoked hard. It's clear that the Democrats are never going to give them the wall, but you didn't think the Republicans were going to go along with this. How could they allow so many poison bills in this negotiation? It's atrocious. Fox News polling says 66% of the American people want a budget deal with border wall funding. Yet, there's no border wall funding in this bill. So he's been sabotaged. He has to declare a national emergency. I don't like the idea of a national emergency, but one, U.S. Code 2808 and U.S. Code 284 give him that authority.
You know, I love being on this show with you because you flip-flop from day to day to try to make excuses for Trump. Yesterday you said, this is not a bad deal, 55 miles.
Until I read what was in it.
No.
And that's the thing. They put this in at 1 a.m. last night.
Let me get this
no
straight.
one has read this bill.
No
one has read the bill. It's like Obamacare.
What you said yesterday is not true, Jesse? It's not 55 miles?
I changed because I read the bill. That's what happens when you read one. You change your opinion.
Yeah, and you scream. Let me just say, this, to me, is an outrage. I mean, this is like a tyrant who says, I'm going to go around the Congress, forget democracy, I'm going to do what I want, and I'm going to please the far right-wingers on talk radio who apparently have all the power and have his ear because guess what? He had a deal in December, and he said no to it, even though it was bipartisan, endorsed by Mitch McConnell. He now has a deal today, passed by majority of Republicans, endorsed by Mitch McConnell. He goes around the Congress, he goes around Republicans, and sets his own agenda in line with people who are in his ear from the talk radio show crowd. The fact is, by the way, CBS poll, 66% of Americans say no to a national emergency for this wall. In Fox polling, 56%. Fox has 50% opposed right now, opposed to any wall construction. 2/3 support the deal that was on the table that includes some money for additional border security, not for a wall.
It says it right here in the poll,
right.
Juan.
That's what I'm telling you.
Walls
so what
and barriers.
So what you get here is 60% of Democrats, 73% of Republicans
let him
saying
keep
no
talking.
to this.
Let him keep talking.
Greg, I was going to ask you about the president now going into 2020.
Yes.
Now he could run against conservatives, the Republicans in Congress, and the Democrats on border security because he'll say that they didn't give what the people wanted.
Yeah. Let's dismiss this idea that declaring a national emergency is a big deal. We do it all the time. In fact, calling it a national emergency is a bit overstating it. And I think we have a bunch of them currently going on right now.
30.
So it's not, yeah, like 30. It's not a big deal. The craziest item, the poison pill that is truly poisonous in this, and this is why he shouldn't sign it, is according to the fine print, you can't remove any potential sponsor or member of a household who might be a potential sponsor, meaning that's amnesty for anybody who might be a cartel smuggler.
Anybody who brings a minor, sponsors.
If that kid, if there's a kid right there, he could just grab. He turns every unaccompanied minor into a very expensive shield.
Yep.
You know what? This is why you should hate government with every fiber of your being. This was a 1,200-page bill designed to chain yank the president. So you had these months where you could have listened to experts. You could have actually gone and met and listened to. Yeah, Juan, keep popping your head like that. But it's true. The Democrats ignored the advice of the experts. Instead, they created a bill just to yank him. That's why he should declare the national emergency. Juan, I listened to you, Juan, for 4 minutes.
It's Republicans and Democrats who voted to pass this bill.
Which is a
mistake.
mistake.
And if you recall, Donald Trump said, I have here a tweet, November 2014, Obama subverting the Constitution because he's unable to
So
negotiate.
you're okay with this idea that you can't remove any potential sponsor? You're okay with that?
What does that have to do with
you didn't read the bill, did you, Juan?
I'm saying to you, Greg,
Juan didn't read it.
I read it.
Juan, you're a prisoner of your own mind. You're a prisoner of your own mind.
In other words, you don't even support what Republicans do. You only support what Trump does.
No, I think for myself. You should try it.
You should
try it. These are the talking points.
What he's talking about, though, this thing about the sponsors is the main point. That's going to incentivize the child trafficking, which is part of the humanitarian crisis that Trump and Republicans are claiming that they want to solve. So, I mean, look, it's a bad deal. Just because Republicans support something doesn't mean it's a good deal. This is a bad. I don't see how he signs on to this, though. Even if he declares a national emergency and then he's acknowledging that, yes, there is a humanitarian crisis at the border. This is a big deal. We do need more money. I am going to move federal money around in order to solve this. By signing this, he's saying that he's okay with all of this stuff and okay with something that allows for and foments child trafficking, that prohibits, fencing in certain areas, that prohibits certain types of fencing that he's been out there saying the fencing structures that we have now don't work. This is saying, well, yeah, the prototypes that you like, we're not going to go for these. So I don't understand how he does this and has himself on record.
So the bill got worse after the shutdown.
Let's go just back to what Greg highlighted here. If you're a cartel member, you're a human trafficker, and you bring a child across the border, this legislation says they can't deport you.
Yes.
They give amnesty to cartel members and human traffickers in this bill. Or if you're thinking about sponsoring a minor, or if you know a minor in the United States that you'd like to sponsor.
Basically anyone.
It's pretty much anybody that has any relationship with an unaccompanied minor gets a pass under this bill. Juan, even you can't agree with that.
Let me just say this. Chicken Little has good hair. At least today on this show, because you are like the sky is falling over.
Just saying it's a bad bill.
I forgot what you said after you complimented my hair.
The reason that President Trump cites for this is, in this bill I can't move around the funds that I want to, because remember he was saying, well, I want to move additional funds in order to supplement the limited money coming for what yesterday Jesse praised as the 55 miles given to him by Democrats.
Before I read it.
Now he's saying, it's about children, or it's about
He's been saying it's about children
people,
for a
or
long
it's about
time.
There's a caravan of invaders.
Yeah, remember when you thought the caravans were a big problem?
This guy just lies, and there are people who will do
kids
anything
died, Juan.
to
I guess that
defend
wasn't
him.
a problem.
Oh, get out of here.
As far as a national emergency, too, interesting. They're already shifting the language, folks on the left. Chris Hayes had tweeted out, climate change really is a national emergency. Yeah. So now what you're going to have is every left-wing activist is going to come forward and say, well, if he's going to use this for a national emergency, I'm going to use that. Even though we have existing national emergencies, the fact that Trump makes this contentious issue a national emergency, I promise you.
I'm declaring that Juan is a national emergency.
Here's what I'm declaring to you. Not one of all these 30 previous national emergencies allowed a president to spend unauthorized dollars, which is what Trump wants.
Did you have a problem with
might end up in
Obama's
court,
executive
and then we got to go.